disclosures. And key that I've published several books, and I receive royalty payments for those books, and I've trademarked the Wahls diet plans, Wahls behavior change, Wahls protocol. I have equity in those companies. So we'll go for my story. We'll talk about MS dietary research, the studies I've done. We'll talk about diets that improve fatigue, quality of life, how to improve response rates, and a small research opportunity. So before entering medical school, I was an athlete. I competed nationally in full contact free sparring and got a couple concussions along the way. I finished medical school, residency. I had a couple of young children, a son, Zach, a daughter, Zeb. Everything was going great. And then in 2000, my next round of education began, because that's when I became a patient. I had left leg weakness. When I saw the neurologist, I said, 13 years ago, you had an episode of dim vision in your left eye. And I think that was probably optic neuritis. We went through the workup. We found lesions, one in my spinal cord at C3, one in my brain. We did a spinal tap that was consistent with multiple sclerosis. And so I was diagnosed with relapsing remitting MS. Now, being a physician, I did my research. I found the best MS center in the country, and I took the newest drugs. Interestingly enough, in 2002, 2 years into my diagnosis, my physicians told me about a group, Direct MS charity in Canada, and they were advocating the work of Lauren Cordain, who talked about the paleo diet. So I read his books, and after 20 years as a low-fat vegetarian, I adopted the paleo diet. It was a big deal. I began eating meat. I gave up grains, legumes, and dairy. But I continued to decline. The next year, I needed a tilt-recline wheelchair. My trigeminal neuralgia, electrical face pains became relentlessly worse. By 2007, I could not sit up in a regular chair. I was in a zero-gravity chair like this at home. That's how I took my meals. And that's how I did my work at the university. Now, fortunately, I was still mentally clear. And one of my jobs, I was reassigned to review research studies for the Institutional Review Board. And I said, give me your studies related to the brain. And I started reading the basic science. I would begin experimenting on myself. I decided that mitochondrial dysfunction was the driver of disability, and I would create a supplement cocktail for my mitochondria. And then I discovered a study using electrical stimulation of muscles in athletes. People who were never going to walk, people who were never going to walk again, people who had had a spinal cord injury. And I talked to my physical therapist. He says, it's not approved to treat multiple sclerosis, but it's approved for muscle spasm, disuse muscle atrophy, and you have plenty of that. And so he gave me a test session, hurt really bad, but when it's over, I felt great. He said it's the endorphins. And so we added that to my physical therapy. Then I discovered the organization shortly after that, the Institute for Functional Medicine, and of course, the neuroprotection. And what I learned is that, all of that organ system diagnoses, and you guys are hearing from the kidney doctors, all the nephrologists, at the basis, it's an interaction between the genetics that we have and all these environmental factors. And so I really focused on what could I do for nutrition. And I was already working hard with my physical therapist for exercise. And then I had this really interesting, and I had a longer list of supplements that I added. Then I had this really interesting idea, and I laugh at myself how long it took to have it. What if I redesigned my Paleolithic diet based on this long list of supplements that were really important for my brain? And we ended up writing up the results, because in a year, I went from being unable to sit up, having progressively severe fatigue, progressively severe trigeminal neuralgia, these really horrific electrical face pains, to being pain-free, no fatigue, walking again. And in fact, I was able to start biking, and I did an 18.5-mile bike ride with my family. Stunning. Now, this transforms how I think about disease and health. It will transform the way I practice medicine, and it transforms the research that I do. My chair of medicine, my chief of staff at the VA, asked me to develop a protocol that we could test the protocol I used for my recovery in others with progressive multiple sclerosis, which we did. And it was, we used, and we'll go over my interventions. We used this originally in secondary progressive MS, then we added primary progressive MS. It was a safety and feasibility study. So one arm, we had masked assessors, and we're asking, could other people do this very complicated regimen? And was it safe? And what was the effect on fatigue, quality of life, motor function, mood, thinking, and blood lipids? So we asked people to stop processed foods, gluten, dairy, and eggs, because that's what I did. We stressed green leafy vegetables, brightly colored vegetables, and vegetables with a lot of sulfur, cabbage, onion, mushroom family vegetables. I encouraged liver once a week, wild fish, grass-fed meat if they could afford it. We talked about using venison and meat from hunting friends. We encouraged sauerkraut and kimchi, seaweed, nutritional yeast, and algae because of their nutritional profile. And that was part of getting the nutrients that I identified were key for mitochondria. Big salads, that was a fruit smoothie. These were lamb chops, cooked greens, Brussels sprouts. So this is what we're asking people to eat. I had to do a safety study because this was a radical diet. And so we did a 24-hour analysis of my diet, 3 days. The maroon is the average intake for women aged 50 to 70. In the blue was my diet. And so the nutritionist who did this analysis said this was the most nutrient-dense diet she'd ever analyzed in her 35 years of doing these dietary assessments. So I was given permission to do the study. We added methyl B12, methylfolate, vitamin D, and fish oil. We had a few other supplements that people could take. And we told them if they were having difficulty with the supplements, they could stop them. They were optional. And so again, lots of vegetables, some meat, liver. We taught them a mantra-based meditation. We taught them exercises targeting the legs and core muscles. And we taught them how to do electrical stimulation of muscles. Again, the risk, if you're overweight or obese, you lost weight without being hungry. One had to withdraw at 6 months because she had continued cognitive decline. And that's part of the natural history for progressive MS. What you're seeing here, one graph is showing that people ate about 1.5 servings of vegetables per day, and that's typical of the standard American diet. Lots of gluten, dairy, and eggs. And they really did take that out of their diet, and they markedly ramped up their vegetables. We only see this kind of change in diet that is sustained if people experience reduced symptoms with the diet and recurrence of symptoms if they tend to abandon it. Now, these folks, when they came in, they were so disabled, they were halfway between needing a cane and a walker to walk. And what you're seeing here is we got them to begin exercising. They were adding electrical stimulation of muscles so they could do that. And by the end, they were up to 20 minutes of exercise and about 80 minutes of electrical stimulation. This graph, the bottom line with the red bars is the reduction in fatigue from about 2.38 on a scale of 1 to 7. And the clinically significant change is 0.45, so a fairly large drop in fatigue. The top two lines are energy and general health, and the clinical significance improvement there is 5, and those improve 14 to 17 points. So again, a large improvement in quality of life. This is a measure of anxiety and depression that declines over the 12 months. It's really remarkably down at 3 months and continues to decline. The other graph is the improvement in thinking, verbal and nonverbal, that is spatial orientation, that improves. And the more you eat the recommended foods, the more you avoid the wrong foods, the better the changes on mood, on reasoning, and on fatigue. And people are like, okay, what about the change in lipids? Well, you lose weight, total cholesterol goes down, triglycerides goes down. The triglyceride HDL ratio, which is a measure of insulin sensitivity, that improves, and good cholesterol also improves. Then we've done a bunch more studies, but I think this is probably the most interesting. So I've been doing dietary intervention studies, and we help facilitate, my TED Talk that has now 4 million views talking about diet in the transformation I experienced, drove a lot of interest in dietary interventions for MS. Now, this is a look at, it's a network meta-analysis that looked at dietary studies with adults that had an outcome for fatigue, quality of life, and that lasted at least 4 weeks. There were 12 studies, 8 diets, 608 participants, low fat, Mediterranean, ketogenic, anti-inflammatory, Paleolithic, those were our studies, fasting studies, calorie restriction, and the usual diet. What I'm showing you here is the fatigue outcome. And the gray box is the mean standard deviation. The line is a 95% confidence interval. If the intervention and the 95% confidence interval favors the intervention, then you can say that's a good intervention for people with MS. The ketogenic, fasting, anti-inflammatory, it spills over to favoring the control. So it may be helpful, but we can't say as strongly. Quality of life, physical quality of life. Now there are just 2 diets. It's Paleolithic and Mediterranean. And notably, the Paleolithic is about twice as effective as the Mediterranean. And for the mental quality of life, Paleolithic and Mediterranean are helpful. Again, Paleo is twice as effective as Mediterranean. The reality is changing dietary patterns is hard work. When we have physicians recommend their patients make a diet change, only 25% of patients will make an attempt. Now, at only 10% of the 25% sustain the change at 24 months. So 2.5% will keep it up. It's hard. And the standard American diet, high in sugar, high in added flours, increase the risk of obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease. Why is it hard? Well, over the millions of years that life has evolved, including us, our brains are wired to seek pleasure. And we value immediate pleasure more than theoretic future pleasure. And fear of losing our current benefit, fear of loss, is valued more than actually the current benefit. And habits are things we do automatically without thinking. We crave salt, sugar, fat, sex, pleasure, comfort, and inactivity. And that served us really well, again, for millions of years. This is a couple looks at the study people that we enrolled in our study. Again, these have progressive MS. This lady had secondary progressive MS. It took her 127 seconds to stand up, walk 8 feet, turn around, come back, and sit down in that chair. Her fatigue was quite severe, 5.6 on a scale of 1 to 7. 7 severe fatigue, 1 is no fatigue. After 12 months, she still needs bilateral support, but it's down to 41.8 seconds, and her fatigue has dropped to 4.4. And she can climb stairs for the first time in 6 years. And then this is subject 11, who has secondary progressive MS. She's working part-time. She had started the application process to move into assisted living because when her son finished his graduate school and moved away, she wasn't going to be able to work anymore. She needs a cane, takes her 14.9 seconds. Her fatigue is 5.3. In just 3 months, she no longer needs a cane. Her fatigue is completely resolved. And then this is a primary progressive MS person. She needs bilateral support She has really profound fatigue. Her fatigue score is 6.7. At 3 months, her fatigue is markedly reduced, and she can do this task without a cane at 17 seconds. And I think I can show this. Yeah. So here are some of the videos walking. And this is that first person that I showed you. You can see that she's having a hard time bringing her feet forward. Her toes are sort of dragging along. We're worried about her, that we're chasing her with the chair because we don't want her to fall. It's really hard for her to bring that foot forward. You can see her toe is basically stuck. We're going to help her get it forward. Now we're going to see her at 9 months, and this is the first time we could see improvement. And just watch how easily she brings her feet forward. She still needs bilateral support, but clearly her gait has improved. Now this is subject 11, who needs the cane, and she has pretty severe fatigue. At 3 months now, her fatigue is gone. She's in Birkenstocks. Her gait is almost normal. And in 6 months, she can jog. This is subject 14. He is quite stiff. He needs 2 walking sticks. At 9 months, he is much less stiff, much more fluid. And he can do this task without a cane even. And subject 17, had really severe fatigue at baseline. And at 3 months, faster with 1 cane. And is also able to walk independently without canes. Okay, so we have a patient registry. Again, if you have people with neurologic mental health issues, chronic health problems, you can sign up to be part of our patient registry at terrywahls.com/trials. And I'm going to invite you to connect. I have a 1-page handout that summarizes the diet we used in our clinical trials. You can follow me on X and Facebook at Terry Wahls, and on Instagram at Dr. Terry Wahls. There you get to see what I'm eating and doing. There's a lot of education and hopefully inspiration. And with that, I'm going to stop the share so I can take your questions, because what I would like to do is engage in a conversation about how you can use diet. And and the other comment I have, I know all of you have a genetic disorder that you're dealing with, that this is not MS. What I want you to know is every week I'm hearing from other people around the globe who have a variety of medical problems, including genetic disorders, who tell me that their treating physician said, look, there's nothing more I can do. They've discovered my work. They implement the concepts that I just went over with you here. And they find that their fatigue is less, their mental clarity is improved, their mental health is improved. And so they are reporting their quality of life is really quite remarkable. These are children and adults. So I want you to know that there are things that you can do that can improve your overall quality of life. I just want you to be sure that you are aware of that. Do we have questions from the audience that I could address?
Thank you so much, Dr. Wahls. Does anybody have a question? I can bring the mic around. Why did you take eggs out of the diet?
So Eggs are really a wonderful superfood, particularly the yolks. They have a lot, they have choline in them, a lot of vitamins, essential fats. They're really wonderful. However, they're the third most common food sensitivity. Yeah, and I was tested, I'm sensitive to eggs. I took them out. If I have eggs now, it triggers my trigeminal neuralgia. And then, interestingly enough, the IRB, in their wisdom, said, and actually my chair of medicine said, Terry, you have to test your protocol. And so I was required to use the dietary patterns that I use, the supplements I use, the exercise. We did everything. And the nature of research is that when you have preliminary data, that's what you study in the next round of investigations. And so this is the diet that we've have the most data on. But I have done studies on a ketogenic diet. I've done studies on a low saturated fat diet. So there are a variety of diets that are super helpful. The one diet that is health destructive is the standard American diet, high in sugar, added sugars, high in white flour-based products, high in the food-like additives that are in our food that are banned, by the way, in Europe. So
when you make reference to the standard American diet, that's not a diet that's actually prescribed by anybody. That's just a way of describing what people actually eat in the absence of some other dietary plan. Yes?
yes, absolutely. So this is the diet that is pervasive in westernized societies. And the food industry has done a really wonderful job of creating products and adding food-like chemicals to the products that drive up our blood sugar, increase our cravings, increase symptoms of withdrawal if we stop consuming those foods. And so literally in every society that we have been able to introduce sugars, white flour, flour-based products, processed foods, those societies begin to abandon their traditional diets, adopt this westernized diet, the health indices plummet, lifespan shortens, obesity climbs, high blood pressure climbs, cognitive problems climb, and the rates of autoimmunity climb. That has been, unfortunately, a pervasive observation throughout globally.
I think we have time for one more question if anybody has one.
The last comment I want to make to all of you is I was clearly on track to become bedridden by my illness, demented by my illness, dying with intractable, horrific pain. I have completely reversed all of those issues. This morning I went for a lovely jog. If I accidentally am given gluten, dairy, or eggs, my trigeminal neuralgia will turn back on in about 6 hours. If I can come back from profound disability, I've seen the diet and lifestyle changes begin to markedly improve the quality of life across many, many, many different disease states.
My question is that I'm a little unclear. You show the keto diet versus the paleo diet, et cetera. And the keto diet didn't fare as well as we're kind of led to believe it should.
In that network and meta-analysis, it did not do quite as well. I think if we had more studies, larger studies, it would probably perform better. The analysis, those were all relatively modest or small-sized studies. I'm doing a big study, 162 people in it, that's comparing a keto diet, paleo diet, and usual diet. That will be completed at the end of 2026. We'll be analyzing it and presenting that, hopefully all in scientific meetings in 2027. So I'll have a better answer about the keto diet at that time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wahls. We really appreciate your time.
Well, much love to all of you, and I'm off to see my grandson.